All right, we're going to start Unit 14, Lesson 2, and we're going to calculate slope from 2 points. So our last lesson, we found slope by just looking at a graph and then like counting up and over, but what would we do if we don't have a graph in front of us to show us? So that's what we're going to find and solve today. All right, so how to calculate slope without the line, okay, and without all the counting. The counting can probably be annoying sometimes, and eventually you might start getting into decimals and all that kind of fun stuff. So there's some images on your guided notes, and I'm going to rewrite it a little more clear, and I would maybe rewrite it for you as well on your notes, is that we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, let's go back and clarify. Let me take a step back. When you look at this point, 3, 2. Well, 1, you got to figure out which way you're going, right? And you might know then we go 3, we're going to go horizontal to the right, 2, we're going to go up 2. But what do those points actually mean when we talk about x and y? Well, x always comes first in our numbers. So 3 is x, and if you look at your little picture, x would be going horizontal, okay? And then the 2 would represent y. So always something we need to make sure to remember, maybe write this down in your notes as well, is it's x then y, okay? And then that'll help us with this equation down here. So we're going to use this equation every single time. And you're like, Ms. McHenry, but there's pictures right now. There are pictures right now just to maybe show you and make sure you understand that we are where we need to be, okay? No, without an equation, but eventually we're going to need to get to this equation, okay? So let's just look at this image over here, okay? And I'll rewrite that. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, we're trying to find slope, so this is going to give us our slope. And when you think of subtraction, you're like, why are we subtracting? Well, it's the difference, how far they are from each other, right? These points here, on this first one, right, it's trying to figure out how far they are from each other. That determines, and our slope then, I said slop, haha, sorry about that. Slope, oh my gosh. That our slope is just the depth of our line that's going through. So let's look at this image down here, okay? First, you always want to start, and make sure you maybe write this down. We're going to always read from left to right, just like you would a book, just like you would most numbers, right? We're reading left to right. So I'm going to look at this point first because that's on the left side, okay? And I'm going to write that down. So it's a -3, -3. So that's my first point on this graph. And then let's look at our second point. It's this one. And then I have 2, 1. All right. Now, from here, I need to label these points and what they actually represent. Now, remember, we talked about the first letter is what? Always x. Okay. So the -3 and the 2 are x. And then these -3 is y. And this one over here is y. But which one's number 1? And this is what I meant by you have to be reading left to right. It's whatever point is given first, we label it as x1. Okay, that's not squaring, not anything, it's x1. And so then this would be y1, okay? No matter if they're negatives, it doesn't matter, okay? We're just labeling what was shown first. Or if we read from left to right, okay? So this 2, this is then x2. And then this 1 is what we label y2. So just once again, x1, y1, x2, y2, just reading left to right and labeling those. Now that I've labeled them, I can go use this equation to find slope. I know you're like, Mr. Kinner, I could just count. Eventually, you're not going to be able to just count, okay? So we're trying to find the distance that these points, the x's are from each other and the y's are from each other. So y2 is my first point of my equation. This one is y2, and that was a 1, minus y1. y1 was a -3, and I need to write that as a -3. That would make a big difference. Just because there's a negative sign doesn't mean you get rid of that subtraction sign, okay? Then, from there, I need to do the bottom part of my equation, and that's x2, and x2 is over here, and that was a number 2. And then minus, always subtracting, because we're finding the distance, how far they are from each other. And then x1 is a -3. You might be like, Ms. McCreary, why are we, why do we write x2 first or y2 first? Well, that helps us make sure we understand if we're moving in a positive or a negative direction of our slope, and you'll see that here once I start doing subtracting, okay? So What are the rules of subtracting? Now I just need to subtract. Well, keep, change, change. So this is really 1 plus 3, so that becomes 4. Remember, subtracting negative is how far they are from each other. A positive 1 is 4 distances away from 4. Okay, I'll check my work up there too. Then I have keep, change, change. So what's 2 plus 3? 5. And this is it. It is a positive slope. If you look at the picture, it's moving up and to the right. That also means then it's positive. So this is my slope, 4/5. No more simplifying, nothing else there. So let's look at the actual picture and see if I was right. This isn't always going to be there, right? But I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and I go over 5. Okay, so yes, that's our slope with just using our points on a graph. All right. All right, so your second part, same thing. It's this rise over the run, y2 minus y1 gives me x2 minus x1. So let's look at these points, okay? I'm gonna write them over here. We have a -2, 1, and I have a 1, and that is a 2.5, okay? So looking at my equation, first of all, let's look at our points. This is x1, this is y1, this is x2, this is y2. I would be labeling those. If not, you might start using the same one twice, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so y2 comes first in our equation. y2 is 2.5 minus y1 is just 1 over x2, and x2 was 1 minus x1, which was a -2. So now let's go ahead and do our subtracting. Well, that's just 2.5 minus 1 gives me 1.5. Keep, change, change, and I get 3. Now, here I can still simplify that. One, we have decimals and fractions, so it looks a little funny, but 1.5 is half of a third, so of 3. So our slope is 1/2. And if I go look at my picture as well, I could double check that. If I go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, it hits every single time. So using my equation, I was able to come up with my slope of 1/2. All right, so now we got to find the slope passing through these points. There's no picture. There's nothing for me to make sure I'm doing this right. So I need to make sure I am labeling these right away. So this is x1. This is y1. This is x2. And this is y2. My equation is still the same. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so now from here, let's go into those. I'm sorry, that was a little hard to see. So y2 comes first. That's a -11 minus y1 was 8 over x2. x2 is 2 minus x1, which is a -3. So we got some more negatives going this way. Also, this is going to help us determine if it's positive or negative of a slope. So keep, change, change. That's a negative plus a negative. 8 gives me a -19. Keep, change, change. 2 plus 3 gives me 5. Now, you might be like, Ms. McHenry, should I simplify this? No, leave it alone, okay? This equals our slope. So if I simplify it, then I get a whole number, and that's not how we're going to handle with our slope, okay? So that's all your slope is for that one. No simplifying, just keeping it the way it is. All right, got 2 more practice ones. So make sure we're labeling these. Find our slope passing through these lines. We have x1, we have y1. We have x2, we have y2. So y2 comes first in our equation, and that is a -8 minus y1, which was 6, over y2 first, so 2 minus 9. Once again, going to help us figure out if it's a positive or negative slope. So keep, change, change. A -8 plus a -6 is a -14. Keep, change, change. 2 plus a -9 is a -7. You might be, Ms. McHenry, what do we do about this? Is this positive or negative? Well, 2 negatives would make it a positive, and then we can simplify that because 7 goes into 14 twice. So our slope is 2. All right, so leaving that alone, your slope is 2. All right, last one. Make sure I'm going to label first. We have x1 and y1. I have x2 and y2. y2 comes first, and that is a -2. Then we always find the difference. Minus y1, and that is a -4, all over x2, which is a -2, minus x1, which is 0. So let's simplify those. Keep, change. A -2 plus 4 would be +2. And a -2 minus nothing would be just a -2, right? Then when simplified, though, that becomes a -1. Okay, be careful on that. That does become a -1 slope. Don't leave it as 2 over -2. It's be simplified to a -1 slope. All right, go ahead and head to your assignment. All right, make sure you have out your guided notes because you're going to want to use that equation of the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You're going to need to make sure you remember that one, okay? And you're going to do problems 1 through 12. All right, so go ahead and get started on that assignment.